The Metropolitan Water District of Southern California has been around a long time, nearly a century. And during those almost 100 years, the Water Agency, one of the largest in the nation, has responded to the needs of Southern California in ways that are uniquely metropolitan. The way that Metropolitan was formed was unique, by an act of the state legislature in 1928, in recognition of the need for a regional agency to meet future water needs. The reason for Metropolitan's formation was unique: to build and operate the 242-mile Colorado River Aqueduct and bring water to Southern California. The governing structure of Metropolitan is unique. It is a collective. Metropolitan doesn't have politically drawn boundaries. It represents portions of 6 counties: Los Angeles, Orange, San Diego, Riverside, San Bernardino, and Ventura. And the way Metropolitan operates is unique. Metropolitan serves its 26 member agencies so that all have the same access to benefits and services at the same cost. 1900. The city of Los Angeles boasted more than 100,000 residents. The population was quickly outgrowing available water resources. One of the great water pioneers and visionaries, William Mulholland, engineered a gravity flow aqueduct to transport water to Los Angeles from the eastern Sierra Nevada mountains. On November 5, 1913, 40,000 people gathered to witness the arrival of water from the Owens Valley to Sylmar, a northern reach of the San Fernando Valley. Mulholland's famous words, "There it is, take it," beckoned the flow of water. His prophecy of "whoever brings the water will bring the people" was soon fulfilled. But demands by the region's population quickly overtook available water resources, a common cycle in California history. By 1920, Los Angeles had grown to 1 million citizens. Water shortages were again on the horizon. The rest of Southern California also was growing. People in cities needed water. Mulholland was called upon again in 1923 to envision a new source of water and to map an aqueduct route across deserts and up over and through mountains. It was one of the biggest surveying projects in history. The daily pay was $3 plus room and board. The federal government also had its own water plans for America's Southwest, to build a dam on one of the nation's largest rivers, the Colorado River. President Calvin Coolidge signed the Boulder Dam Project Act into law. By 1931, the federal government cleared the way to build the largest dam in the world. Boulder Dam, soon to be called Hoover Dam, was part of the federal government's strategy to supply water and power to the expanding western states. The dam would generate the power for the pumps to run the Colorado River Aqueduct, which in turn would help supply water to sustain a burgeoning Southern California. The Metropolitan Water District of Southern California was formed to build and operate the Colorado River Aqueduct. The first board of directors met in Pasadena at the historic Huntington Hotel in 1928. W.P. Whitsett, the founder of the city of Van Nuys, was elected chairman. As the first order of business, Metropolitan launched a bond drive to raise $220 million needed to build an aqueduct. This was an astronomical amount of money in the time of the Great Depression. Metropolitan spearheaded a promotional campaign to educate the voters. The campaign was creative and ahead of its time. One of the first talking motion pictures, Thirst, was produced in 1931. It featured an appearance by Chairman Whitsett, as well as stories about water shortages. Dramatic radio plays were written and aired, and editorials and advertisements ran in newspapers. Metropolitan pushed hard to get out the vote. Political rallies were held, and on voting day, every bottle of milk delivered to homes in Southern California came with a flyer urging people to go vote. It was a landslide victory. Metropolitan pioneers Whitsett, F.E. Weymouth, W.B. Matthews, and Robert B. Deemer soon started work on the largest engineering project for water in history. It would come to be considered one of America's 7 greatest civil engineering wonders. It was the Great Depression, and a huge project like building the aqueduct meant jobs, tens of thousands of them. In 1933, work began on the 242-mile aqueduct through the harsh Mojave Desert. In addition to the pipeline itself, Metropolitan blasted 29 tunnels along the route. Metropolitan also built 4 dams and 5 pumping plants. Hundreds of miles of roads, water, power, and telephone lines were constructed through undeveloped desert. along with camps to house and feed the workers. More than 100,000 applied for work. People were suffering financially, and aqueduct work paid $110 a month. Metropolitan had some of the world's best engineering talent and workers who embodied a strong work ethic. 35,000 men and women worked 24 hours a day in 8-hour shifts, 365 days a year. A hospital, complete with one of the desert's first air conditioning units, was opened by a man named Dr. Sidney Garfield. For a nickel a day deducted from their paycheck, the workers had full medical care. This type of prepaid healthcare program became the forerunner of the Kaiser Permanente healthcare system, founded by Garfield following World War II. 150 miles upstream, Hoover Dam was completed in 1935 with support of water agencies including Metropolitan. President Roosevelt himself came west to throw the switch and start power flowing to the world's biggest dam. Just south of Boulder Dam, work started on Parker Dam in 1934. The project was funded by Metropolitan and constructed by the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation. This dam, one of the tallest in the world, would provide a pool of Colorado River water to draw from to feed the aqueduct. The delivery system had to travel partly uphill. So for 2 years, Metropolitan engineers and hydraulic experts from the California Institute of Technology, Caltech, worked to design some of the world's most powerful pumps. People came from miles around to see the first waters of the Colorado River fill the dam and form Lake Havasu. In Southern California, the challenges were vastly different as aqueduct workers carved a 13-mile tunnel through the heart of the Southland's second tallest mountain, San Jacinto. 6 feet a day was considered great progress. In 1938, a final blast shattered the last rock from the tunnel. As nationwide radio broadcasts covered the event, the aqueduct's final concrete batch was poured in 1939. 6 years of 24-hour workdays had come to an end. By June 1941, Metropolitan's first Colorado River water deliveries flowed into Pasadena, where the district even entered award-winning floats in the Rose Parade. "1941 held somber news as well. America went to war. Industry related to the war came to Southern California, and water demand increased. Metropolitan's aqueduct water became vital to the war effort. The aqueduct was patrolled constantly. At the Gene pumping plant near the beginning of the aqueduct, a concrete wall was built to protect the transformers. General George S. Patton set up a desert training camp nearby to prepare more than 1 million soldiers for combat in World War II's North African campaign. Camp and tank tracks are still visible today, crossing the desert floor. Metropolitan stepped in to help the troops, supplying water, power, and telephones. Following the war, California was on the way to becoming the most populous state in the country, and Southern California's economy was becoming one of the largest in the world. Cities, agriculture, and industry all needed more water. The 1950s expansion was massive for Metropolitan. 30 more pumps, 10 additional uphill delivery pipes, and more than 165 miles of pipeline and tunnels were added. Filtering at the F.E. Weymouth Water Treatment Plant in Laverne, which was part of the aqueduct's initial construction, was doubled to a capacity of 200 million gallons a day. More power from Hoover was brought in. This huge undertaking was supervised by Metropolitan's board of directors, seen here inspecting the progress in May 1959. A year later, 1,600 people gathered at the San Jacinto Tunnel to dedicate the newly expanded aqueduct. Metropolitan Operations Chief Robert B. Deemer proclaimed victory. Lake Matthews, the aqueduct's terminal reservoir in Riverside, was increased in capacity by 1961. Metropolitan members gathered to celebrate at the dedication. The Colorado River Aqueduct system was finally delivering the capacity it had been designed for 30 years earlier. By the late 1950s and 60s, Governor Edmund G. Brown was navigating the Feather River Project, a massive flood control and water supply system in Northern California, through a political quagmire to initiate creation of the State Water Project. This system of reservoirs, pump plants, and the 444-mile California Aqueduct would deliver water to about 2/3 of California's population, with Metropolitan agreeing to fund and become its largest contractor. A new headquarters building for Metropolitan was dedicated in 1963, with a symbolic mixing of Northern California and Colorado River water. This was a tribute to a future that would forever link California's imported supplies and enhance the region's water supply reliability. Dams, fast becoming part of the American landscape, seemed to attract presidents. President Franklin D. Roosevelt christened Hoover Dam, as did President John F. Kennedy in California in 1963, with the dedication of the San Luis Dam in Central California. Governor Ronald Reagan presided over the opening of Oroville Dam in 1968. Oroville is considered to be the crown jewel of the State Water Project as the world's tallest earthen dam. It was built in less than 5 years to protect communities from flooding and provide resources for much of the state. Today, it is considered to be a National Historic Landmark and has been rated by the American Society of Civil Engineers, along with the Colorado River Aqueduct, as one of America's 7 modern civil engineering wonders. In 2017, record rainfall damaged Oroville's main and emergency spillways, prompting evacuation of people living downstream. Most of the repair work was completed in 2018. At the Edmonston pumping plant at the southern end of the Central Valley, this new source of water had to be lifted up over the Tehachapi Mountains. This once again demanded state-of-the-art pump engineering to handle one of the world's largest water lifts. In Southern California, Metropolitan began to update and build new infrastructure to prepare for the arrival of state project water. Huge concrete pipes were used, and a special pipe mobile was designed to move the 17-foot diameter sections. The first water from the State Water Project reached Southern California in 1972, filling Castaic Lake along the project's west branch. 1 year later, water was delivered to Riverside County's Lake Paris at the tail end of the East Branch. Along the way, new ideas were vetted to address the growing population and its water needs. Water purification was explored as a means to extend the region's limited resources, and engineers looked to the ocean water with desalination as a potential new supply. The challenges to improve water management and protect existing resources became increasingly important, especially in the Sacramento-San Joaquin Delta. The Delta is a gateway for many of the state's water systems. The water flows from the mountains and from Oroville and other reservoirs down to the Sacramento and San Joaquin rivers to the Delta. Much of the water then flows west into San Francisco Bay and out to the ocean. A small percentage of the water that flows through the rivers and channels of the Delta is lifted by federal and state pumping plants into the California Aqueduct and other canals that supply the Bay Area, Central Valley, and Southern California. The Delta is used this way because the State Water Project system was never completed as envisioned. When the project was developed, planners intended to carry water to the state and federal pumping plants through a 43-mile canal, skirting the eastern edge of the Delta. The canal would protect water quality and avoid significant damage to Delta fisheries from the water project's large pumps that can entrain fish and draw others off course by creating reverse flows in South Delta channels. For cost reasons, the proposed channel was not built in the 1960s. Over the years, this reliance on delta rivers and channels to move water intended for drinking and farming has created problems, including declining fisheries, vulnerable levees, and salinity. New laws, such as the Clean Water Act and Endangered Species Act, have been enacted, providing benefits but also challenges for water managers. Water and wildlife agencies have worked to have a reliable water conveyance system that protects the Delta, its species, and their habitat. One project was the Peripheral Canal, a proposal to bring more reliability to the State Water Project's delivery system. Voters defeated the plan, but the need for solutions remains. Today, work is moving forward to find ways to modernize Delta conveyance using a single tunnel solution that incorporates the latest science and engineering techniques. The goal is to protect the environment and assure a high-quality water supply to families, farms, and communities, from the Bay Area to Southern California. In the 70s, California was hit by the worst single-year drought in history. Rationing was planned, and Metropolitan began a massive public outreach campaign to encourage water conservation.
Water that you drink, would you stop to think, where does it come from?
The Southland responded, and consumption was cut by 15%. By the 80s, water conservation and recycling took on more important roles, and environmental issues had engaged the public. Efforts to safeguard drinking water quality and public health also became more advanced, with the opening of Metropolitan's state-of-the-art water quality laboratory in 1985 on the grounds of the F.E. Weymouth Water Treatment Plant. Ensuring water quality then and now remains a top priority. Metropolitan continues to meet increasingly stringent federal and state standards to protect public health. In the late 1980s, another drought hit. Conservation strategies were rolled out, including the promotion of water-saving hardware like low-flow toilets and shower heads. By 2002, Metropolitan and its member agencies had provided rebates for 2 million water-efficient toilets. Many member agencies worked with grassroots organizations to help reach as many consumers as possible, and the program saturated the market. Agriculture and industry were encouraged to conserve too. Attempts to balance the needs of California's residents, industry, agriculture, and the environment now became part of the public's expectations. Metropolitan forged the first-of-its-kind partnership with the Imperial Irrigation District to make water saved through the IID distribution system improvements available to Southland cities. New technologies made it possible for outdoor water conservation to generate significant water savings. Metropolitan launched its Landscape Heritage campaign, promoting California-friendly and native plants. The campaign extended to retailers, new home developers, cities, public agencies, and nurseries. In 1995, construction began on what was to become the largest storage reservoir in Southern California, Diamond Valley Lake. The Riverside County site was carefully selected, and environmental awareness and sensitivity was incorporated into the design. Efforts to preserve artifacts were made as the site was excavated. In fact, the work yielded significant findings of prehistoric animals, including a new species of mastodon. The new reservoir was capable of being filled with water from the Colorado River Aqueduct and the State Water Project once the Inland Feeder Project was built. Tens of thousands of acres of land were preserved as ecological reserves, and recreational opportunities included a network of hiking, biking, and equestrian trails. The lake began filling and was dedicated in March 2000 with a series of events attended by more than 10,000 people and news organizations across the Southland. 3 years later, Diamond Valley Lake was open to the public for fishing and recreation. At Hoover Dam in October 2003, national, state, and local leaders gathered to celebrate another milestone in California water history: the signing of agreements to protect the Southland's water supply while allowing California to permanently reduce its deliveries of Colorado River water. Known as the Quantification Settlement Agreement, the document set aside decades-old disputes and provided a roadmap for establishing water transfers from agricultural agencies to the Southland. The QSA included funding for lining the All-American and Coachella canals and implementing agricultural conservation measures within Imperial Irrigation District so that the agency could grow the same amount of crops with less water. Metropolitan and its member agencies continue to plan for the future. Efforts to diversify the region's water resource portfolio through conservation, recycling, and groundwater cleanup help ensure the region has water supply reliability. Metropolitan has an ever-evolving resource management roadmap known as the Integrated Water Resources Plan, or IRP, that ensures Southern California has a reliable water supply regardless of challenges that come along. The first IRP was adopted in 1996 and is continually updated. Metropolitan has steadily diversified its water supply portfolio, with every iteration of the IRP setting new reliability targets each time. Priorities include additional conservation savings with a greater emphasis on outdoor water efficiency, development of additional local water supplies, maintaining Colorado River aqueduct supplies, stabilizing state water project supplies, and maximizing water storage. Each of these goals has regional components and benefits. Since the 1990s, investments of more than $1 billion in conservation and recycled water have led to at least a 35% reduction in per capita drinking water use. Metropolitan has a long-term conservation plan, developed in collaboration with its member agencies, retail water agencies, and other stakeholders. Our leadership believes that we are only as strong and self-reliant as our member agencies, so we invest in local projects. Over the years, Metropolitan has invested nearly $800 million in conservation programs alone, including rebates for toilets, sprinklers, and smart irrigation controllers. Metropolitan also had the largest turf removal program in the nation and continues to promote California-friendly and native plant landscapes. Developing local supplies is vitally important to Metropolitan. We have had a regional local projects program for 3 decades. Today, more than 100 water recycling projects and groundwater recovery projects are part of Metropolitan's Local Resources program. For the first time, Metropolitan is taking on a region-wide recycling demonstration project, with the potential to become one of the nation's largest water recycling facilities if the program moves forward to full scale. The Advanced Purification Center is a joint project of Metropolitan and the sanitation districts of Los Angeles County and is now operational. The Colorado River Aqueduct system is remarkable and reliable, but the river water is shared by 7 states and Mexico and must be managed well, especially in the face of climate change impacts. In 2007, Metropolitan played the lead role in developing a program to store water in Lake Mead. Known as the Intentionally Created Surplus Program, Metropolitan can now store more than 1.5 million acre-feet of water in Lake Mead for use during dry years in Southern California. The ICS program provided many benefits to our region during the 2013 through 2016 drought, allowing Metropolitan the ability to fill its Colorado River Aqueduct when state water project supplies were at record low levels. Recently, Metropolitan helped craft a drought contingency plan that brings sustainability to the Colorado River. Climate change is already reducing flows of the Colorado River. Current water deliveries to each state are not sustainable. Under the DCP, each state agrees to take less water as Lake Mead levels drop, but the agreement also provides new tools to help states better manage their limited water supplies and incentivize conservation. The DCP protects Lake Mead from falling to critically low levels, avoiding the consequences of water curtailments on the Colorado River. Water transfers and exchange agreements are creative means used by Metropolitan to maximize storage and provide greater flexibility to withstand times of shortage. Managing resources is like an intricate choreography that requires careful oversight and planning. One innovative partnership is between the Palo Verde Irrigation District and Metropolitan. This 35-year agreement began in 2005 and pays farmers to hold off irrigating between 7 and 28% of their land to make water available to Metropolitan. This shift of supplies allows Metropolitan greater flexibility while supporting the Palo Verde Valley economy. Stabilizing supplies for the State Water Project is a challenge that has faced California for decades. About 30% of the water that supplies Southern California comes from the north via the Sacramento-San Joaquin Delta. Here, the system is fragile, traveling through the delta, where it also is vulnerable to impacts of climate change, such as drought, as well as earthquakes and land subsidence, which puts more pressure on the already fragile levee system. The area also has environmental values that require protection. Metropolitan and its board of directors have stepped up many times in the past and continue to do so to help finance, envision, and design a more modernized system. Flexibility and resiliency are critical to Metropolitan in the face of ever-changing impacts of climate change. Metropolitan is working to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and support other programs. These programs include our own initiatives, as well as others, such as the California Resilience Challenge, which will fund projects to build local resilience to climate change. Metropolitan, in partnership with member agencies, sponsors grants and funding programs to promote innovation and fresh strategies for managing resources. Metropolitan remains committed to environmental stewardship, which is reflected in how the district approaches its business practices. From producing and using renewable energy to vesting in ecosystem protection, restoration, and sustainable landscapes, Metropolitan embraces its mission to operate in ways that are both economically and environmentally responsible. All of these challenges are met by a talented and highly skilled staff of about 1,800 people in facilities that span the district's 6-county service area. We know that diversity in ethnicity, age, and experience makes us stronger, and that's a big part of why Metropolitan is uniquely qualified to serve Southern California. Recognizing that collaboration is where the true power lies, we work with our member agencies and diverse stakeholders to reach wide audiences to produce results, plan for the future, ensure the safety and security of our water resources, to conserve and to drive innovation. That's always been the legacy of the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California. And as we look ahead, it will continue to be our mission to be bold, creative, and ambitious as we make the most of our unique role to ensure sound water management policies that respect the environment and provide programs and investments for a sustainable future.